Okay, it is 4 o'clock on February 18th, Tuesday, 2025. We are in the Cape Cod Gateway Airport Commission conference room, and I would like to call this meeting to order. This is the public session agenda. The meeting of the Cape Cod Gateway Commission meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 20. I must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, please make their presence known. Not seeing anybody, we can move right into roll call.
Chairman Flores,
Yes, here.
Vice Chairman Gio,
Here.
Clerk Weil,
Here.
Commissioner Beerworth,
Here.
Commissioner Bailey,
Here.
Commissioner DeGeorge,
Here.
Commissioner Melo. Here. And Yarmouth Representative Christine Greeley.
Here.
We have a full quorum today.
Excellent. Okay, next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the previous meeting, which was on January 21st, 2025. If we could have a motion to approve those, would you please make that move?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the minutes of January 21, 2025? Additions, deletions, considerations? Not hearing anyone? I will call the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I will abstain because I was not here for that meeting. One abstention. Next item on the agenda is item number 5, public comments. Anyone have anything they would like to say? Okay, not seeing anyone. There's no reason for number 6, which is the Commissioner's response to public comment. We'll go right into our reports from the subcommittees. First, we have Finance, and that's represents Commissioners Weil, Bailey, and Gio, and Norm Weil as chairperson will give us that report.
Okay, we met on Tuesday, February 4th, 2025 via Zoom. It was called to order at 8:35. All 3 commissioners were present. There was no old business. We voted on the minutes for November 5th and January 7th. There was no old business. I'll be somewhat brief on some of this because it's going to be covered in this meeting, but we had FIN 0225-1, review and approve the airport capital improvement plan. We voted to move it to the full commission. At that time, Commissioner Gio had to leave for another engagement. We went on to FIN 0225-2, review and approve the recommendation award of a contract for a 3-year on-call environmental services to HRP Associates. That will be discussed at this meeting. We voted to move it forward. We had a very long discussion on FIN 0225-3, which was to review and approve the recommendation of award of recruitment services to ADK Consulting for a total contract price, and in my meeting notes here it says $45,000. It was $49,999.99. We had a great deal of discussion on this item. I know that Commissioner Gio rejoined the meeting at this point. A lot of discussion, and we received quotes and reviewed quotes from 5 proposals. Basically, only 2 met any criteria for further review and analysis, and 1 we felt met the criteria. We the spirit of the vote was really to move it to the full commission, because we had discussion and various thoughts that we were not comfortable that it should be decided at the finance subcommittee, but further reviewed and discussed at this meeting. So we voted to move it to this meeting for further discussion and possible approval. Long-winded. FIN 0225-4, review and approve change order number 1 for runway 624 EMAS replacement project in the amount of $102,000. That will be discussed at this meeting and the reasons for it. So I'll just say that we voted to move it to the full commission meeting. We moved on to FIN 0225-5, review and approve change order number 1 for aircraft firefighting vehicle replacement project in the amount of $0. We're very happy about that, and we decided to approve that for further discussion at this meeting. The meeting was running very long, so we had very limited discussion of any updates, since they were going to be covered at this meeting, and we adjourned at 10:02.
Thank you, Commissioner Weil. Next on the agenda is a report from the Infrastructure and Marketing Committee. Commissioners DeGeorge, Bearwith, and Melo are on that commission, on that committee. Commissioner DeGeorge is chairperson, so I'm going to ask him if he would give us the report.
Okay. The Infrastructure and Marketing Committee met on Tuesday, February 4th, 2025 at 10:33 in the morning via Zoom. All commissioners were present. We had no unfinished business. New business, IN 0225-1, review and discuss temporary post-security tent installation to accommodate increased passenger activity. Manager Service provided a summary of the proposed post-security temporary tent installation. This process has already been reviewed with TSA, and that there would be buffer zones that would need to be implemented around that tent. Manager Service reviewed the potential cost of roughly $150,000 to $175,000 to make this all happen for this summer. The other thing is Manager Service met with the Philadelphia Airport Marketing Department, and they are building a strategic plan for marketing the flights to make sure that our marketing is in alignment. There was no other business to be discussed, and the meeting was adjourned at 11:13.
Thank you, Commissioner DeGeorge. Okay, moving along to number 8, old business. There isn't anything to discuss today, so we can go right into new business. The first item on the agenda is COM 0225-1. It's approval of the airport capital improvement plan for FY26 through FY30. We're going to discuss and perhaps approve this. Towards that end, I would ask Vice Chair Keough to please make that motion.
Okay, this is a motion for the approval of the airport capital improvement plan FY 2026 to 2030. The motion is to review, discuss, and approve the FY 2026 to FY 2030 capital improvement plan for submittal to the town of Barnstable. It's sponsored by the Finance Committee, and it may be acted upon, so I make that motion.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made, a second. Any discussion?
Sure.
Would like to hear from
Sure.
Airport Manager.
I have a presentation for you, but I'll go through my background and rationale. So we provided a summary of the CIP in your packet last week. Airport management met with FAA and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation Aeronautics Division back in August of 2024. Modifications were suggested by both of those entities. We had both federal and state planners present during those meetings, as well as engineers. And they looked at all of the projects and made various changes within the 5-year horizon to meet federal and state budgets. So whatever would fit into their budget, they know what they have for other airports. So they looked at Cape Cod Gateways projects and they fit them in appropriately within that 5-year horizon. Justification for several projects such as the reconstruction of runway 1533 and taxiway Delta, redevelopment in outer years was also requested by the FAA and we provided that to them. Because of the above that I just mentioned and because of several projects needing discretionary funding, we only receive about $1 million to $1.2 million annually. So anything above that, any project above that would need discretionary. For instance, runway 624 rehabilitation was just over 22 million, so obviously that needed our AIP money as, our entitlement money, excuse me, as well as any discretionary that they could get within for the region. A number of projects are going to be funded under the Airport Improvement Program, and where able, other grant programs such as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Grant, as well as some other grants that we're looking at. We worked with our on-call planning, engineering, and environmental entities so that we could come up with estimates for fiscal year 2026, and then to verify to the best of their ability what it would look like from 2027 on through 2030. We heard from the Finance Subcommittee when we met with them on the 4th, and they suggested modifications to some of the projects, in particular projects that are associated with the terminal project set for 2027, fiscal year 2027. So as we get into the 2027 budget next year, we will obviously prior to that have discussions with the Airport Commission. So I'll go through the presentation. I know it might be hard to see from where you're looking, but I did provide this to you as well. In the documentation last week. So obviously for 2026, this is the project that I'll proceed forward to Town Council with. It's for the design and construction of aircraft hard stands. I'm going to go through that in a moment with you. And then I'll go through each of the other projects briefly so that you're aware of what we have on our 5-year horizon. So looking at the projects for 2026, this is design and construction of aircraft hard stands on the terminal apron and to do an update to our ACDB plan. Our increased operations by JetBlue and American Airlines, the main terminal ramp has seen some depressions in the pavement caused by the heavy aircraft. The pavement in this area is about 4 inches thick and should be 9 inches in depth to accommodate the size of the aircraft that we have using our facility. When that apron was designed, JetBlue was not here yet. Same thing for runway 1533. JetBlue was not here yet when that went into design phase, which is why it was at 4 inches versus the 9 that it needs to be today. The apron was installed in 2014. As an additional fix, the airport proposed to put hard stands within the typical layout of the aircraft that we're accommodating today. So that includes the E-175, the A220, and the E-190 that we see today here at the airport. Additionally, the airport is due to update its airport concessions disadvantaged business enterprise program. You're going to hear more about that later on today. Typically, this program costs under $30,000, and the FAA normally takes a program like this and just tacks it on to another larger project that they have moving forward. So the funding for this project was estimated in August of 2024, $990,000. 95% will be funded by the FAA, and 2.5% by Mastar Aeronautics, with the remainder local share, just over $24,750 from the airport. Have a couple of graphics to show you. So here's the hard stand locations. So we have 3 locations right now. We're going to be putting in a 4th to accommodate the JetBlue and the American Airlines flights that come to the airport. We're looking at putting concrete hard stands that accommodate the main landing gear and a little bit beyond that for the footprint of the aircraft. So we went through a couple of different scenarios with our engineers and we came up with the best course of action to install hard stands in these 3 spots within for the main terminal, and then eventually doing the 4th spot at some other point in time. That's what I have for 2026. Before I get into the remainder of the CIP, do I have any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can we go back to the hard stand traffic? So that indicates that at the first hard stand at the upper left-hand corner will be designed for the Embraer 190, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the next one down would be designed for an Airbus A220?
No, the hard stand.
They'll be able to handle all
All
of
of
the
them.
aircraft.
All
that are
3?
shown.
Yeah.
That was my question. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
one more
I'm
thing.
going back.
So, so we're doing this now because when we did this in 2014, we didn't envision these aircraft being here. We did it based on the aircraft that we had.
That's correct.
Okay, so now we have the reality of these aircraft are here. And forgive me if I ask this at the finance committee meeting, but are we looking ahead also to the possibility of larger aircraft coming in here? Like, to the extent that our runways could accommodate? So if an A320 is coming in, are they within the same design specs, or do we need to go more?
They are, and it's a perfect question. So the third spot, I can't see at the angle, but that one should say A320.
Does.
So the hard stands that are installed there will be able
Oh, I
to,
see it, okay. Yep.
this one right here.
Yep.
All three will be able to handle any of those types of aircraft.
Okay, thank you.
On that same, just a quick question, is the Embraer 190 being phased out by JetBlue?
Yes, and they've
And what's
already,
gonna take its place?
A220, so,
So that'll be all set.
yeah.
Do you know when that's happening? Will that be this summer?
They came already this past summer a couple of times. They made arrivals here in that aircraft. I think the biggest thing for them is they're limited as to their distances that they can fly at this airport with that aircraft. So for instance, if in the future we have a lot of community members that are asking for direct Florida flights, for instance,
Right.
we wouldn't be able to do that on that existing runway at this point in time. So this is just going to New York, so they've been able to do it.
And one final quick question that came to mind, in terms of us looking continuously at electric aircraft and what it can and can't do, the weight of the electric aircraft is what we're doing on the paper there, will that suffice?
So right now, what we're doing is to accommodate the larger commercial fleet that we're seeing at the airport today. We don't foresee electric aviation being in this type of aircraft yet. Electric aviation, even for a 9-passenger seat, for instance, Cape Air's looking at a 9-passenger seat, that's even proving to be difficult because of the weight of the batteries.
That's what's my question.
Yeah, so I think in the future, they're talking about hydrogen fuel as being an option, or a hybrid where it's a mix of different types of fuel sources. But right now, that size aircraft, you're not gonna see it in electric aviation for quite some time.
But the
If-
current electric aviation plane,
Mhm.
could the weight of that plane
Be
be
accommodated on those
accommodated
pads.
by what we are building?
Yes, I would think so, just because of the weight, the sheer weight of those aircraft right now.
Okay.
And if we're only talking about a 402-like
Mhm.
aircraft, it would be able to be accommodated on
Okay,
those
I just wanna make
pads.
sure we're
Yeah.
that's under consideration, because we
Yeah.
keep talking about the
Electric.
what ifs of electric.
Yep, and I think that's coming.
Mr. Chairman, can I bug you for
Yes,
one more
sure.
question? Going back to the chart, it's not this graphic, but the spreadsheet, yeah?
Yep,
So the column, estimate date, that's the date that these
estimates were
estimates were
provided.
created.
Yes,
And then you've got 2 rows there that say need update, that means we don't know what the estimate date was?
yeah, so those are in 2027, we assumed that those prices were good, but we still need to have an update for those particular line items. For the 2026 budget, we're really looking, we provide a 5-year budget, but we're looking for approval of 2026 only. So in 2027, we have time to update those estimates, which we will have to.
Okay, what I was asking was the purpose of those 2 cells was to, for example, the terminal building HVAC, right? That says 2.5 million, right?
Yes,
And then the estimate date says need update.
yes.
Which implies we don't know the date that the 2.5 million estimate was created.
No, it was in August as well, but we need an update because based on numbers that we're receiving for the tower, for instance,
Yeah.
HVAC, we're seeing that numbers are a little bit higher. So we need a better number for that because, they did that update in August,
Yeah,
but we're showing that the numbers are not quite there yet.
I understand. Just to avoid any confusion, it may be better just to put the date of the estimate in there,
Yep,
right?
with a
Because you know that,
notation.
and then put like a footnote or something saying that it requires an update.
Sure,
Thank you.
yep,
Do you expect the bids when that all goes out to be much higher?
I think they might be, yeah.
So this is just really a placeholder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a placeholder because we have to identify what federal funds we might be using for it. So if we need to go back and ask for more money, ask
Right.
for more discretionary, then we're gonna have to.
We'll keep us posted on that,
We will.
to the final subcommittee, please.
Okay. Going into 2027 to 2030, we have design and construction of terminal building seasonal structure. So the development of the seasonal structure is really to accommodate the passengers during peak activity. We have a current inability to efficiently provide spacing for screened passengers due to that seasonal increase that we're seeing. And the seasonal activity, we really have a lack of hold room space. So when we looked at, we're looking at a tent, and I'm going to go over this with you during updates, but we're looking at a tent for the summer season of 2025 and most likely summer season of 2026. Planning is already well underway. We're looking for implementation in April, and we'll go through that with you in a moment. But this is for a seasonal structure to accommodate that excess that we anticipate seeing. So even this summer of 2024 with American Airlines new flights to DCA and to LaGuardia, plus the JFK flights with JetBlue and Cape Air flights, they all seem to occur at the same time, and we have no control over that. We've asked for them to make some spacing if they could, but it's really where can they make connections to their other airports and what's most appropriate for them down the line. So we're looking at a seasonal structure right now. The funding for this was estimated in August again of 2024, $6.5 million, with 95% funded by the FAA, 2.5% by MassDOT, and 2.5% by the airport. So about $162,500 based on a conceptual plan that we have today. So we would be looking at a mix of bill grant funds, which are competitive funds that we can use, plus our entitlement funds. And I mentioned to the finance subcommittee that depending on the approach that we take with the terminal, and Mark had made some suggestions for modifications, depending on that approach, we may want to look at dipping into our reserve to pay whatever share that federal state agencies cannot cover. But we need to discuss that as a commission to determine how and set a policy for how we want to use our reserves. And the finance committee agreed to that as well.
When will construction begin on this, anticipation of the summer?
So right
Just
now,
like- just like now.
it would be like, no, I know we need it now, but it probably wouldn't be until 2027 that we're looking at,
No, I'm
construction.
talking about the facility for this coming summer, or
The
now.
tent.
Oh, that's gonna be in place by April.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
that's my question. Thank you.
So our current room capacity has a capacity for 138 passengers. So we took a look at what our summer season was in 2024 as well as 2025 to say, what is the possibility of passenger capacity within that building? Now, we know that American Airlines were operating at about 75% load factor. So we took a look at this in both scenarios and said, what could we possibly exceed by, even if we said we're at 70% or 80% load factor? So if we were looking at 2024 summer activity, we would exceed capacity by about 141 passengers daily. If we look into 2025, our season's going to be more robust this season. We're looking at possibly 216 or so passengers that we're going to exceed our needs for. So we're looking at putting a tent for now to be able to accommodate them, but obviously we would like to put a structure that's a little bit more robust than a tent in the future. As you know, we have summer season that comes through, we have summer storms that come through. It's not ideal to have a tent and having people out there potentially getting wet.
So the folks who are out in the tent, they will have been TSA screened, correct?
Yes, yes.
So will we have laboratory facilities out there for them?
Yes. Yep.
How many people are coming off that plane?
So the
I mean,
people
that's-
coming off the plane we don't need to worry about, it's the people that are waiting to depart. So they need to go through screening, so they'll have the restroom facility in the existing building, then they'll have restroom facilities out in the tent area to use as well that will be ADA compliant.
Make them nice so that we're represented.
We are, I'll show you pictures in a little bit, yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
has TSA approved the tent structure?
Yes, we had meetings with them, they were the first people that we had meetings with to
Okay.
make sure that we had the security in mind and to get all of their thoughts about modifications that we would need to make. We started with them, we had Airport Solutions Group with us at that meeting. Airport Solutions Group's our engineers, on-call engineers.
Yeah.
We had them participate in that meeting so that together we could design something that met their needs, but also met what we needed for our passengers.
Will there be a requirement for somebody to be stationed outside the tent to make sure that nobody leaves and goes into the AOA?
No, but we'll be using our existing cameras, and the only access that people will have to that site will be through TSA secure checkpoint, and there'll be fences around it. And I'm gonna have,
Oh, okay,
as an update, I am providing you with that detail.
okay, fine. And then the corollary question to that is fire marshal approval? Do we need to look at that?
Yes, so that was already taken care of. So our meetings, we had consulted with TSA, our airport engineers, the town of Barnstable for any of the permits that we would need. The tent is considered permanent if it's in a location for any certain, what's the length of time? 180 days, which it will be.
Yeah.
So then you trip into different permit requirements for that at that point in time. You also have to have a wind loading for the tent, so it's a more robust tent that we have to install. Then we also have to meet with the fire department to make sure that we have appropriate exits for any passengers that are in that area, and that has all been done.
And finally, will there be any type of air conditioning in that tent?
No, it's
No
gonna,
portable units that we can
there'll
put in
be
there?
fans, there'll be fans,
That's
that's
it.
all we're gonna have.
We can't do portable AC?
We are going to have sides in the tent, but our concern, and this is based on conversations that we've had with the Vineyard in Nantucket who have tents, is that it can get very stifling in there if it's a really hot day, even with any type of fan or air conditioning. Right now, we're only accounting for fans. The estimate for the tent right now is $150,000 to $175,000 just for the season, for the tent and the restrooms.
Are we buying the tent or renting it?
We're renting the tent.
How would we buy it? What's the tent
Because
cost?
we wanted somebody to be able to come in and install it, and then to check it out on a weekly basis to make sure that it is accurately installed, the wind load hasn't caused any damage to it, and we have insurance with this company to make sure that we're covered. We don't wanna take on the liability, we want them making sure that it's secure.
I just, not to beat a dead horse, but if we could look at different alternatives that may be out there now for AC units that don't require, a cut in the tent, or they're self-contained, basically just need AC power. Let's just take a look at it, because I'm very concerned about that many people being in an enclosed area with just fans. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
This is what our 2024 season looked like at capacity. You can see that there's some passengers that kind of sitting on the floor over here. I think even Commissioner Gio was present for a couple of those big capacity moments, so
That's a good
every single chair was being utilized. And that's with less of the operations that we have that we're gonna see in 2025. This is the concept plan, and this is where we have to discuss as a commission how we're gonna move forward. Obviously, this concept plan is taking up all of the employee parking lot that's in that area. It might be overkill, but they just want to show how much room we had to be able to put in a facility like this. This is based off of a seasonal structure that's in Canada, where it has solar panel on the top, but it's cantilevered, so it's not an enclosed structure. We talked at the finance subcommittee about possibly closing off a portion of that where we have 2 floors and jet bridges, and then another portion would allow for outside access as well. So I'll show you what we have today, but this is going to be a conversation that we have with the commission as we move forward. And this was developed by Airport Solutions Group, just to get a sense of what it could look like. And you can see the cantilevered solar array, but still it's open. So if that's, not the best idea of what we wanna do, then we need to look at, other options. Last year, we did submit for a terminal optimization plan, for our CIP last year, so we could do that analysis and see what options we had. That was not approved at the time, but we can start looking at this again, especially with American Airlines flights.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I had suggested at the FinCom meeting that we put in for it again. I mean, they say no,
Right.
but if we don't ask, they can't say yes.
But I think with the total DC, if they're ever gonna say no now, it's the time probably.
Yeah.
Say no to everything else, but let's do it.
Yeah, so I think we just need to have some workshops to discuss what this potentially could look like. Moving on beyond that, runway 1533 aeronautical study and airspace analysis for the future reconstruction of that runway. So the proposed reconstruction and extension will need an aeronautical study to acquire easements for the runway approaches. An aeronautical study will define the number of navigation easements that are needed. So funding for that is estimated at $325,000. Again, we're in a situation where right now, 95% funding is being offered by the FAA, 2.5% by the state. As we get into this, I know this graphic is hard to see, but when we're looking, this is the runway extension, and here's the end of the existing runway. Everything that you see in the magenta and the blue are the magenta are easements that we need today, existing easements that we need. Nothing to do with the extended runway, it's just easements that we don't have today that are needed. The green are easements that we need for the future runway extension. So just to give you an idea of, and this is commonplace, a lot of airports haven't caught up with their easements that are needed in a particular area, especially if there's been significant growth that has surrounded the airport. So we wanted our consultants to identify what is needed today and what is needed to satisfy the future. Any questions on that?
Who are those easements with?
So the easements are with property owners. Some of them, most of them in this area are business owners, that we have easements to be able to go onto the property and cut down trees that are impacting the approach surface.
Have we identified each of those properties? at
Yes,
this point?
so we just had a recent project in which we identified the trees that needed to be cut, and we did that with some funding that we received from the state. That was 3 years ago, Matt?
2020,
2020, oh my.
I know.
Okay, 2020. So we already cleared what we needed to clear, and this is going beyond that to make sure we have the easements for the future scenario and for the existing as well.
And is this on the Independence Drive side?
Independence Drive side, correct.
So where we cleared across the street, that's,
That's included,
That's
yeah,
included.
so where we clear, so this triangle here is that piece that's kind of, that we took a lot of trees down
Mhm.
here. It's right across from where the Spoon and Seed used to be.
there's a new restaurant there.
Say that again?
There is a new restaurant there.
Oh, okay. The new restaurant is across the street, and that's the area that we tore down. And we also did some clearing along our fence line here, and then back towards, what was that property where,
APCO,
APCO, yeah,
and then around Sencor.
Sencor.
Sencor, the cardboard box company.
Yeah.
And HAC just moved there, so the Housing Assistance Corporation is there in the corner. Okay,
Any other questions on that before I move on?
thank you.
Terminal building HVAC replacement. Terminal was constructed in 2011. Because of the problems that we're seeing in the tower HVAC unit, we're assuming that we're going to have the same issues that we'll deal with in the future in the terminal. We've already had some maintenance issues with our HVAC unit, although not similar to what we've seen for the tower units. We do routine maintenance on these systems in the terminal. We have contracted maintenance plans where they come out twice a year and they take a look at the systems and make sure they're operating appropriately, but they are starting to show their age. So we looked at this. This is where the estimate was 2.5 million, and it's based on what we were starting to see for dollar amounts for the tower HVAC system that we have to replace. We're looking at using a combination of AIP funds and bill grant funds for this. FAA likes to see that you're combining a couple of different grant sources to be able to accommodate this. Once we get the bids back for the tower, we'll be able to have a better sense of what we could potentially be looking at for the terminal units that need to be replaced.
For the sake of the public who are watching, could you just explain the acronyms? AIP and BIA?
Yep, so Airport Improvement Program is AIP, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Grant is the BIL, the bill grant. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if we've had any impact to the freeze on grants and funding?
At this point, no, we haven't. We haven't indicated that we have. The same thing, I have an update item as well later on in the agenda, and that has been indicated that we should just proceed status quo. It doesn't mean that things may or may not change within the next couple of weeks. So we'll keep our eye on it.
Joe's just now at FAA, so
Yeah.
you're looking around.
We should probably have a plan B
I
if we lose that funding.
Yep.
See,
And that's where I think the policy is going to come in place. There's also bonding that we can get through the town if we need to. So I think I'm sorry?
If we lose HVAC funding, then we'll be buying a lot of fans, I think.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Replacement of snow removal equipment, that's what SRE stands for. So every year we do have a certain amount of snow removal equipment that we must maintain to meet federal aviation regulations and standards when it comes to snow removal on the airport. So when those pieces of equipment do come up and are available for us to do any type of replacement, we do that. If for some reason the FAA does not participate in replacement of those because they have only certain pieces of equipment that they will accommodate us on, then we typically go to the state with their airport safety and maintenance program that they have, and they usually cover that at 80%. In speaking with them during the CIP development, they identified that this snow removal equipment could be eligible for us, would be 80% funded by MassDOT Aeronautics and 20% funded by the airport. It's a skid steer plow that we use to clear off the EMAS bed. So it's a tracked vehicle that we have to have. It has to be a lower rated vehicle to be able to transition onto that EMAS bed. And so the one that we have now is 2004. It's pretty old, so we do need to replace that. Any questions?
No, just a comment and observation, and as long as I've been on the commission, we get the most out of our vehicles that anyone could ever even imagine. So it's not things that we buy every other year, they're usually 25 years old and can't get parts anymore.
Yeah, no, we do. We have Don Sears, who is the maintenance manager now. He was our mechanic for years. He did a fantastic job maintaining our equipment. We are looking for another maintenance technician to join us as a mechanic, and I know Matt has done a couple of interviews already. So, design and reconstruct runway 1533 and the DBE program update. So as part of the reconstruction, the airport will need to improve the thickness. This goes back to the thickness that I told you about, 4 inches versus 9 inches. Currently the pavement is 4 inches. When runway 624 was rehabilitated, it was rehabilitated to 9 inches to meet the standard. So our engineering team with Airport Solutions Group looked at different ways in which we could tie into the existing 624 and then meet the standard where we need to meet it on runway 1533. So that's what this program looks at. Additionally, similar to other programs, we have a disadvantaged business enterprise program that will need to be updated. The FAA has asked us to tag it onto this project, which we have here. Funding for this project is estimated, again, in August of 2024. $24,100 is the estimate, and they were using runway 624, our most recent project that did a rehabilitation, to use as a source of the funding estimate.
So these are FY24 numbers we're planning for, we're actually into FY25,
Yep, so they provide us,
so we're into 26.
right, so every year they provide us with an estimate for the 5-year plan, knowing that for the year that we're going forward with, 2026, those numbers we try to be as accurate as possible. Not that we're not accurate here, but we have to have some sense of what this potentially could cost in our overall program. So we base it off of 2024 numbers, but every year when we do our CIP, we update those numbers and we check to make sure, are these numbers still accurate? Do we need to make modifications? Have things changed in the industry where we have more expense? Most likely the answer is yes. When we did, for instance, runway 1533 prior to when I was here, I think that project was about, I want to say it was $9.2 million for that project. And fast forward 10 years, when we did 624, granted it was a thicker pavement thickness, but that was 22 million. just to give you an idea, within a 10-year span.
No, my point is that this actually is, I mean, if it was done on August 26, 2024, then it's part of fiscal year 25, which ends next June 30th.
Right, and we will,
So my question is, this is a presentation to the town council for the CIP, or to the town manager? That, we're planning for FY '26, not FY '25.
right, but we have to show the whole 5-year program, and I need to have some dollar amounts in there. So because I don't know what it's going to look like in fiscal year 2028, I have to give the estimates that I have today, and that is using 2024 dollars to make the estimate, knowing that most likely that's going to be updated within the next couple of years.
Okay, it just makes no sense to me to give an FY '25 number when we're planning for FY '26, why the town would accept that, I don't understand. That you should be building in whatever we think the acreage is going to be, so that when town council and town management is looking at the numbers, they're real numbers. That's a make-believe number.
Well, it's a real number as of 2024.
But you're missing
Yeah,
the
I know what
point.
you're saying. No, I know what you're
We're
saying.
talking FY '26.
Yeah, yeah. And that we would have to do that for all the projects, and we'd be making a guess, so that wouldn't be a real number either. Because you would be guessing what 2028 might look like.
Well, we know it's not gonna be those numbers.
Probably not.
Okay, just an observation in terms of budget.
And I think that's why when we look at the CIP, they're approving the CIP the year that our next year that we're coming into. So the town council is really only approving 2026. They're looking at the whole program to see
No, I
about 5
understand.
years. Yeah.
But I don't wanna belabor this, but my point being is that we're asking them to approve an FY '26 based on an FY '25 number, and that's the number in our budget.
We're asking them to only approve, let me go back. We're asking them to only approve fiscal year 2026, this top one here. We do provide the rest of the years, but when I go to town council, I'm only gonna be talking about 2026. This is to provide you with information on our full 5-year program. My appropriation order will only be for fiscal year 2026.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So are we using an FY '26 estimate or an FY '25 estimate when we present the FY '26? That's my point.
We're using.
Right now, according to this chart, we're using an FY '25 estimate, which was approved last budget season
Right,
for a new budget coming in for FY '26.
and it does have some contingencies in there for the hard stands.
Okay.
So when you go, let's see,
I don't want to belabor it, I'm just, it's from a budgetary perspective, it just doesn't make sense to me.
so for the hard stands, which is what we're going in front of them within the next couple of months, yes, we are using our best estimates based on 2024, and those have been since updated as of even last month to make sure that that 990 was an appropriate number, and it is. So when we start building the CIP, unfortunately, we start building it in August, and we know a lot of things can change between August and here we are in February, and a lot of things can change, but we're doing our best estimate with some contingencies already built into that.
Okay, I don't want to belabor this. I still don't agree with that. Let it go.
1533, when we started to look at both the design and meeting that 9-inch lip that we need for the pavement as well as the extension, we started to look at how do we tie this in with the other projects. Obviously, we have Taxiway Delta that needs to be modified. These are projects that are all based on the master plan and proceeding forward with the master plan projects. And looking at how we need to tie those in, everything connects directly to the runway, to 1533. So the order of projects that to be implemented really matters. And this is what we went to the FAA with. We said, we want to look at reconstruction first, then we're going to look at Taxiway Delta, we're going to purchase the easements that we need, and then we're going to extend the runway. And they were in agreement with this overall preferred order. So when we went to them with the CIP and the 5-year CIP, they were in agreement with that overall structure. In looking into 2029, we do need to look at permitting for Taxiway Delta and Runway 15 extension. Those are local permits. We have just completed our federal and state permits for the for the master plan projects. So this will be looking at local permits that we need with Cape Cod Commission, the town of Barnstable, and others. That is about $650,000 estimated.
For fiscal year 25.
Yes,
But we're talking fiscal year 26, so we should be using fiscal year 26 numbers. I'm not gonna harp on this, but it's the same issue I have with, the numbers are
yep.
legitimate.
Currently, we don't have projects for 2030 listed on the CIP, but we always list our projects that are beyond the CIP horizon so we can get a sense and give the FAA a sense of what the projects are coming down the pike. So that includes design and construction of the new taxiway delta, again, a master plan project. Design and construction of the replacement of our fuel farm for vehicles. Easement acquisition, and then phase 3 permitting and design construction, such as any tree clearing that's needed, before we move on to the extension, which is earmarked right now for 2033. That's all I have for the CIP. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Thanks, sir.
I just wanted to make two comments. One is just reiterating what Mark had said about, and one is from my own. As far as the project or at the subcommittee level on a policy for reserves, we discussed the issue of using reserves. That it appears to me that there's going to be situations in which we need to spend money long before we can get it through the whole process of getting approved through this CIP project. I talk about electric aviation as an example. Electric aviation is moving so fast that if we use this structure over the long-term funding of it, will be bypassed. So that's where the whole idea of we need to look at the policy and start to develop a policy for using reserves and what it's appropriate to use the reserves for.
Yeah.
And then about all the federal money, we made a lot of discussion over the fact that it's particularly difficult for Katie and Matt to do this kind of work where everything is unknown about future funding out of the federal government. And the whole idea of what gets funded by the FAA for airport improvement could have the carpet ripped out from under it. So we need to keep on top of that as much as we possibly can. Thank you.
Mr. Beal?
I just want to address your concern about the fiscal years. And as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing, we're looking at calendar years, we're looking at local and state fiscal year funding and federal fiscal year funding. which
They're all
are
different.
Two different cycles. So I can see where the confusion is, like we're talking about 27, but it's fiscal federal 26. Can we just
Well,
pick a standard, stick to it?
No, we
No,
can't.
we can't?
No.
Okay.
we have
The
to run
state, the state runs off of the same fiscal year that we have, which makes it easy, but the federal government does not.
It's July,
Right.
it's July 1. It begins July 1 of a given year, and then the subsequent June 30th it ends, and you always call it by the year it's ending.
No.
So we're ending now, we're in fiscal year 25, because this current budget year will end June 30th.
Yeah, I think what my point was is that seeing as the majority of the funding is coming out of the federal level,
Yeah, they're October 1 through.
if we just use federal fiscal year,
It wouldn't align with the local, with the CIP that I'm doing for the town.
okay. In terms of what you have to submit,
Yes.
okay.
So when I submit to the town, I submit the documentation under the local and state fiscal year funding that we need. And I have to submit separately to the FAA for their fiscal year.
So you basically have two budgets, one July 1 to June 30th, the other one October 1 to.
Right, so I
September.
have two CIPs that I'm submitting. So if you
Correct.
saw my spreadsheet, it has
I got you.
town,
and then-
local,
right.
FAA, and then when I have to submit and what applications, the windows are due.
Is that the source of the confusion with the dates?
No, not at
No,
all.
I-
No.
Okay.
My issue is that for the town budget,
Yeah,
we are using fiscal year 25 numbers, which is an estimate for FY 26. At a minimum, I want to look at, what's the inflation rate, I would like to boost it up. I don't want to use FY '25 numbers for an FY '26 budget, when we all know that FY '26 is gonna be more, it's not gonna be that number that you have there. And that was my issue, had nothing, it's just, it's a different fiscal year.
Yeah,
And if we're telling, town administration that the numbers are gonna be the same, I think it's a little bit misleading from our perspective to do that. I'd rather be overestimating, because you can always go back, it's very difficult to go up.
right, no. and
That's my
we-
only observation. Otherwise, it's a great presentation, I'm just, having done lots of budgets for other federal state agencies over the years, we would never estimate 1 year and then project that for 2 years down the road. That's really, well, actually 1 year, subsequent fiscal year.
Yeah.
I would just boost it up somewhere. What's the
Yeah, we do
what's the
have
inflation?
some-
3%, 4%. I would go from that, whatever that times 4%, and put that number.
We do have some contingencies, typically it's about 20 to 25% that we put in the contingency there. So we do have some contingencies there.
So it's built into that FY
Yeah.
'25 number.
And we also had our engineers take a look, like for the hard stands, for example, they took a look at 4 different options within that budget and what we should do and what we can do within that budget, and then we just modify as we need to go.
But if we're using FY '25 for FY '26, that means the contingency is less in FY '26.
Yeah.
Because the cost has gone up.
Yep,
I
and
mean,
we,
that's the logic.
yeah, I mean,
Sense to it.
we hope that our contingency is appropriate, and for example, in.
It was appropriate for FY '25, but it might not be appropriate for FY '26. You see the
Right.
point I'm making?
No, I know the point you're making, but it's hard to keep chasing that. We do our best by
Put a
putting in.
number in there, you do your best. You
Yeah.
do it.
Percentage, you
Put a
automatically
percentage.
build in a
You
rate
build
of
in a
inflation.
3% or a 4%.
Well, we
That's
have a
what it is.
contingency in there right now of 20 to 25%.
I understand.
Yeah.
But when you use that same number in FY '26, it's not 20 to 25% anymore, it's maybe
Okay.
16%.
Yep.
I mean, if we're telling the town this is what we think things are going to cost, we should build that in.
Yep.
That's all. I don't want to belabor it anymore.
I'm sorry to bring it back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Kate.
Yep.
Okay, any questions or issues relative to item number 9? We have a motion, we have a second, we've had plenty of discussion. I think we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving COM 0225-1 as written and discussed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's a vote. Let's
Thank
move on
you.
to COM 0225-2. This is approval of the recommendation of award in contract for a 3-year on-call environmental services to HRP Associates, Inc. Norm, as chairman of the subcommittee, would you please make that motion?
This is a motion to approve the award to HRP Associates LLC and to approve the subsequent contract bind between HRP Associates LLC and the Cape Cod Gateway Airport for a 3-year on-call environmental services. For on-call environmental services. Sponsor is the finance subcommittee, and it may be acted upon at this meeting.
Okay, the motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion and explanation. Katie, will go to you and then
Sure.
any other discussion.
Thank you. So, requests for proposals were advertised and 2 proposals were received in response to the RFP for the on-call environmental services. HRP Associates Incorporated and Horsley Witten Group. An evaluation committee independently reviewed each of the proposals and supplied the procurement office with the evaluation process. We do that online. Many of you, I know Norm has done that with us and Mark as well as Joe. The proposals were rated on the comparative evaluation criteria, which was already set forth in the RFP. And they were ranked based on their responses, whether they were not advantageous, unacceptable, advantageous, or highly advantageous. So both companies were rated on that criteria. The process resulted in a ranking of proposers in the following order. HRP Associates came in as number 1 and Horsley Witten Group came in as number 2. The evaluation committee then reviewed the technical proposals to determine the strengths and the weaknesses of each firm. All firms provided a strong range of services and staff for their proposals. But the committee members agreed to move forward with a recommendation for HRP Associates as the most highly advantageous firm based on a number of elements. They had a strong technical proposal. They had a strong demonstration of technical ability and understanding of our specific upcoming project needs, especially when it is relating to PFAS analysis, monitoring, and evaluation. They were a highly enthusiastic, qualified, and experienced project team that can clearly meet the needs of the airport. And they also included staff duplication in some areas such as responsive licensed site professionals. So if there was a hazardous spill, they have multiple people that can respond to the airport in that situation, which is very important to us to have that capability at the moment's notice. They were highly qualified and experienced sub-consultants were added to the team that are very knowledgeable about the airport. They have a demonstrated capability and ability to meet the airport's project goals. And their hourly rate structure was also highly advantageous and similar to others that the airport has seen in the past, as well as similar to Horsley Witten Group, which submitted their fee proposal as well. For those reasons, the evaluation committee submitted a recommendation for award to HRP Associates for consideration, and we're asking for their approval and approval of the contract with HRP. The contract was also embedded within the RFP as well. Any questions or comments? That's all I have for rationale.
Any members of the commission? I just have one quick question. Where's HRP Associates located? Are they
Plymouth.
Plymouth? And who was HRP?
Brian
What
Massa.
does the H and the RP stand for?
I don't know what the acronym actually stands for. The company is located throughout the United States. They have just opened their Plymouth office. Brian Massa, who we've been working with in the past, is the new manager of that office, and they opened that office in Plymouth, Mass.
For my own edification, at some point in time, HR or PR.
I will.
Thank you. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion, a second, discussion is over. I will call the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is the vote. Let's move on to CON 0225-3. This is approval of the change order number 1 for runway 624. It's the UMass replacement project in the amount of $102,000. Commissioner DeGeorge, would you please make that motion?
Motion to approve the amendment number 1 to the contract dated June 3rd, 2022, by and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Lawrence Lynch Group Corporation for additional work associated with leachate in the EMS block in the amount of $102,000. It's sponsored by the Finance Committee and may be acted upon.
Might I get a second from a member of the commission?
Seconded.
Okay, motion is read, second, now for discussion. Katie, would you tell us?
Sure. So prior to removal and replacement of the engineered material resting system, also known as EMAS, testing was required to determine that the EMAS bed had any sealants or the bed itself to make sure that we didn't have PFAS in it. However, the EMAS bed could not be tested for PFAS during bidding because it would make the runway and the EMAS bed out of commission, and it would take that whole runway down. So we had to wait until bidding was completed and when we could close that runway down and test the system. When construction commenced, the runway and the EMAS bed were both shut down as part of the project, and we were able to test the bed at that point in time. PFAS was identified within the bed, but not within the soils underneath the bed. So proper removal procedures were required of the bed itself and disposal of the bed to a landfill that would accept PFAS material. The airport and Lawrence Lynch came to an agreement on costs for this EMAS bed removal. Originally, Lawrence Lynch came to us with a request of $209,991 for the work, but after extensive negotiations between ourselves, the project managers, and our attorneys, a discussion about bid specifications and what was appropriate within the bid specifications, we negotiated to settle on a fee of $102,000. So this $102,000 looked at construction and removal of the pad itself and to collect the leachate. Additional block handling because it was considered a hazardous material because of the PFAS. Leachate storage and disposal, proper ways to do that and to move the storage blocks from one location to the next. And restoration of the block storage area. They typically made a bathtub to hold all of these materials so that none of the leachate, none of the bed materials would go into the soil beneath that. So they made a bathtub during construction to be able to do that. Then they had to de-water this material so that they weren't transporting material that was leaching as they're transporting. So they had to de-water that material. Then they had to put it into a line truck to go for disposal. So it was quite involved what had to be done, but unfortunately during bid specifications, we identified that there was a possibility of PFAS being located within the soil, within the blocks themselves, and possibly other pieces and elements of the EMAS bed. We identified that. The work was a little bit more extensive for disposal, and that's the agreement that we came on with Lawrence Lynch to be able to cover that cost. That's all I have for background and rationale. Can I answer any other questions?
Any other questions? I have one quick one. Leachate, is that the process or is that?
I don't know what the
I was
leachate
wondering what
is.
that meant.
It's, so the concrete blocks
Originally, when I first
are-
I thought it was a company, it was a subcontractor
And you might know it's a better
to Lawrence Lynch.
explanation.
Leachate is the liquid.
Okay, okay.
That's absorbed into the concrete, it's like a crushable concrete,
Got it. I've never heard that term, so.
yeah, it's environmental.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, not hearing any, I'll move this question and ask for a vote. All those in favor of approving COM 0225-3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Thank you.
carries. That is a vote. Okay, item COM 0225-4, this is approval of the change order number 1 for aircraft firefighting vehicle replacement project in the amount of $0. Wendy, would you make that motion, please?
Sure. Motion to approve amendment 1 to the contract dated August 21st, 2024, by and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Rosenbauer, Minnesota LLC for body changes to the aircraft fighting replacement vehicle in the amount of $0. Sponsor is Finance Subcommittee and may be acted upon.
And could I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, discussion regarding a $0 amendment.
Chris has this one.
Good afternoon. I wish all my change orders that
gonna
came
say.
up were all $0,
I
but
think this is the first time we voted on a 0.
I like it. Might be the last time, but. So this is just, you can imagine a fire truck has many specifications that go into it. What this change order does is finalize those specifications with the manufacturer, saying we want this hose in this location, we want this button here, we want this seat this way. So those are all different modifications to our vehicle, resulting in a change order, but it was a bit of a back and forth to come out to have a $0 cost change order. So that's what we're proposing today. It's finalizing the specifications for the truck.
Okay. Any questions, issues, or concerns from members of the commission? Not hearing any, we'll move this, item number 0225-4. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is unanimous, that is a vote. Next item is COM 0225-5, discussion and approval of the recommendation of award for recruitment. No. Oh, yeah, for recruitment services to ADK Consulting for a total contract price of $49,999. Marguerite, would you please read that?
Motion. Sure. Motion to approve the award to ADK Consulting, Inc. and to approve the subsequent contract by and between ADK Consulting, Inc. and the Cape Cod Gateway Airport for the airport manager position, recruitment services in the not-to-exceed amount of $49,999. Sponsor is the Finance Committee and may be acted upon.
And could I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made, we have a second. Katie, I'll give you first commentary on this if you.
Sure, so I know that this item is up for discussion, so before I provide any type of rationale, I'm going to turn this back over to the Finance Subcommittee and to the Chair of the Finance Subcommittee to begin the discussions, and then I can provide any feedback that you can.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, we wanted to have a discussion of this because we had a difference of opinion in the subcommittee, and I thought it was only appropriate to discuss what our discussion was all about, so that other members who are not on the finance subcommittee could contribute their input before a vote was taken on this item. we felt technically that the process that we went through to select the vendor met all the qualifications that were required to pick a vendor. Our issues were related to the cost, generally the cost, by bringing somebody in that is new, we lose a history, we've lost Griff, and I'm probably the oldest member of the commission, and I've been here about 6 years. And there's a whole history of things that go on here that we need institutionally to have and make sure we understand. We felt that there's a need for continuity. We're concerned about how the staff would feel about somebody new when we have an assistant manager who meets qualifications to be the manager. And over the history, both Bud, the previous manager, and Katie had developed a succession plan for not only for a succession plan for the manager, but most positions have succession plans so that there's always somebody who knows the job and can step in at that point in time. So we were not in favor of approving it without having a discussion at this.
Point of order, you're using the word "we" as if everybody felt this way.
No, it's not.
Okay,
No,
because you're,
I'm just talking about we as the discussion that happened. Not everybody agreed with that discussion.
right.
I'm just
So when
bringing
you
up
say
the,
"we felt,"
yeah, I'm bringing up
some
the
did,
points.
some didn't.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm bringing up the points of the discussion.
Point one, two.
Mr. Chairman, technical question regarding cost. In the contract, I forgot to bring it, but I think it's either paragraph 6 or 8. It refers to the cost and it refers back to the proposal for things that are not referenced in the agreement. And in the proposal, it says that if we hire somebody who we interviewed within a 12-month period for another position, that we have to pay an additional $10,000. Were we able to confirm whether that's included in the 49.9 or?
My understanding it was, and the reason we went to 49.9 was because of the recommendation of Subcommittee Chair Lyle. He suggested that because travel and other things related to that, so I'm assuming that 10 is in,
Okay.
if that were to occur.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the contract price is $45,306.
The contract price was changed to the $49,999.
Yeah, that was at the recommendation.
And that,
of,
yeah, and that was
conversation I
also
had with
on the
Commissioner
record
Lyle.
in the finance
Okay,
sector.
so what was sent to us then is not updated?
I'm sorry, I might have sent you the wrong one. It's
Okay.
$49,999. And that's the one that Sue has in your packets, I believe.
The meeting notes had the $45,000 in it, the actual vote and motion has the $49,999 in it.
It was corrected.
And
Yeah, because even this says, what's in our packet says 45,306.
The vote is good, the motion as presented is 49.999.
And as part of the process, if this is approved, it was going to be made clear to the vendor that it was not going to exceed $49,999. There were all kinds of contingencies that may or may not happen, and we thought $49,999 would cover all of those things as a negotiating item. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, comments anyone would like to make?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I understand the 49.9, which I think is still kind of high, but are we setting precedent that every manager that we now hire from this point on, we're going to use a consulting firm?
No, this is for the current manager's position, period.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I would, any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, can we hear, you've had this discussion in the Finance Committee, those of us in infrastructure haven't heard the pros and cons, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about that discussion.
I would. go to the subcommittee chairperson, and Will Weil, and members of the subcommittee, which include Brad Bailey and Mark Gale, to speak, and then I have one final comment I'd like to make.
Well, I'd rather let other people talk, too, then I'll fill in.
Brad?
Yeah, so, you know, part of my concern about this entire thing is that this is being viewed as a lack of vote of confidence for Matt, and that's not the case at all. And yeah, and I think the chairman will back me up on that. But as I mentioned in the finance committee, and I'll mention here, Katie, you've done some pretty outstanding work. You've moved this airport from a mom and pop operation to an airport that is now not only started air carrier operations, but it's expanding air carrier operations. And the professionalism of our approach to all of our issues and our responsibility to the town and the taxpayers should reflect that. And so in this circumstance, given the importance of this position and the amount of time that whoever the candidate is that is selected will spend here in the future of this airport, it's important that we take an open, honest, and transparent look about what is out there, which includes Matt, and go through a professional process and a transparent process so that when we do make a selection, it is above board without question, rather than just saying, well, somebody is here, let them have the position. Which is not to say that then it would not be great to have Matt, but we should be able to demonstrate that if we select Matt, it's because we went through a real process and we determined that Matt was the best candidate.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Brad?
I'm going to disagree with that because I think that we need to save the $50,000. We can save the $50,000. We can not get ourselves entwined with this company and then have to pay them for somebody else that we move in or up, around, back and forth, whatever. The history of this process, as I understand it, has been one of qualifying people through the course of their course of conduct. Matt has certainly been here long enough to show that he's qualified to take the position, and for that reason, for the saving of the $50,000 and for the historical knowledge that he's going to bring with him that will be lost, or could well be lost, if Matt was to leave, I think we need to stay with Matt or have Matt become the next manager because of all those issues.
Other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just wondering if it makes sense, when we look at the way things have been done in the past, to go out locally, to put in ads ourselves first and see what sort of feedback we get, and save $50,000 and put it towards the tent. But I'm not saying don't do it at all, but maybe not do it right away, give it 60 days or something like that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Can somebody refresh my memory as to what the annual budget is for this airport?
12 million last year, 12.8 million. This year we're going to 13 million.
So with an operating budget of about $13 million, we're saying we don't want to spend $50,000 to make sure we're making the right move. I have a concern about that. Thank you.
Respectfully, I think the operating budget is more on the order of $6 million when you factor out the fuel. And I'm not saying that that's chump change, it's a significant amount of money, but Matt has the institutional knowledge that somebody else coming in won't have. And I don't want to see Matt take a walk on us.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, one other question. If we go to an outsider, is it a one-year contract? Is there a probationary period? What is our stance on this?
That's up to us to negotiate with whomever that candidate will be. That's totally, that's up to us.
Could I answer that just from a town standpoint? So typically, you're right, where it would just be negotiated through the contract, but the town typically takes, even if it's a promotion, it's a 120-day period that the town looks at to ensure, like, for
Well, there's a
instance,
probationary period,
there's a
usually around
probationary
20
period
days,
already
that you can.
embedded.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, one final comment.
Yes.
And that is, the comment about losing Matt's knowledge in history here assumes that he is not gonna be the successful candidate. The fact that we're going through this process does not automatically eliminate Matt from the picture. In fact, it's, it's my hope that that will be the viable candidate. So let's not talk about it like it's an either or. And finally, in terms of the financing, we're talking about 0.8% of your figure of $6 million.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, yes, thank you.
I think we need to follow a professional process. I'm very much in favor of that, but I think we also have to take into account that the strategic plan that we're trying to enact, that we need to follow those edicts so that there's never a question in the future. I don't have a question that Matt can do this sitting on his hands. But I think in order to protect what we're trying to implement for future positions and future growth, I think we need to make sure that we take that into consideration.
Okay, I just have a couple of comments I'd like to make. And actually, I wrote down some notes, considering that I thought this was gonna come up for discussion. Relative to history, I've been affiliated with the airport since 2016, when I was on the town council, I was the liaison. So when Brielle came on, when Katie came on, even when Matt came on. So I have a sense of, where we've been set, different configurations of the room over the years. Going back to the negotiations with the landing, when it was still, what did we call it then, I forget the name of the mall.
Before
Kmart.
Kmart Plaza.
Well, it was, we all called it K-Mart,
Cape
that wasn't,
Town.
it wasn't Cape Town, that's what it was, Cape Town. At any rate, I just wanted to say a couple of words about the motion because of all of this discussion. And, first, I think when it comes to affiliate management position, a national search is not just an opportunity. From my perspective, it's actually a strategic advantage. I think that when we cast a wider net, I believe we gain access to a more diverse pool of talented individuals with varied perspectives, experiences, and really innovative ideas. And I believe all of this will help us propel Cape Cod Gateway Airport forward in a forward manner. And of course, this includes Matt, as our local candidate applying for the position. He has a solid background, he's done tremendous work, he's given us great presentations. So by us going out on a national search, it does not preclude that Matt becomes the eventual manager. I think a national search, in addition, ensures that we're not confined to just a small single candidate or even a pool of candidates, but instead, I think we open ourselves as the commission to the best possible fit for the role. Someone who aligns with our vision, values, and goals. Margaret, you mentioned the strategic plan. I had written that down because that's a document that we're going to take a look at in a little bit. And I think it also, what's important to me, it demonstrates a commitment to fairness, transparency, a commitment to excellence, and I think it fosters a sense of trust and credibility, not only among our employees and stakeholders, but I think the town as a whole. And I think we have an obligation to the citizenry of the community to show that we are as transparent as we possibly can be. Either way, I think we all know our next, whomever that airport manager is, whether it's Matt or somebody else, he or she is going to face some headwinds. We know that. And I think we need to ensure that whomever the person is, that he or she will have creative solutions to these potential challenges that we know we're probably going to face. So I think in the interests of the commission, in the interests of the airport, in the interests of what is transparent to the town, and in fairness to Matt, in terms of earning the position through through a process that we as a commission support, I think is in everyone's best interest. It's interesting, I'll use that as a final example and a final comment. You know, a number of years ago when I was on the town council, Jessica Raccosetti, who was the chairperson, asked me if I would chair the screening committee for the next town manager when Tom Lynch was leaving. And I did it, and I was immediately confronted with the fact of some town council saying to me, we don't want to go outside. We want to go immediately inside, and we want to hire Mark Ellis. We think he's the best person for the position. And I said, with all due respect, some of you have more experience than I do as a counselor, but you know, from my own perspective, having been a school superintendent and a university dean, I would never think for a second, for some, you know, assistant positions and other types of positions, I would have no problems of promoting from within and not going through a process like this. But the number one person, the person we're gonna ask to lead this airport into the future, with all of the issues that we're facing, I think, in all fairness to Matt and to whomever else, to the town council, to us as a commission, and to the town as a whole, that we need to show as much transparency and as much clarity as we possibly can. And I think that by supporting this motion to bring ADK in to give us a hand in doing that, and I know Matt will be an applicant, he and I have spoken about that, I think will be in everyone's best interest. And as, getting back to the council position, when we did finally hire Mark Ells, you know, we had probably 25 candidates who applied for that position, and out of that, Mark held his own. He did a great job. He knew the town, he knew the community. He actually had a leg up on everybody else that came in the front door. And ultimately, there were 3 final candidates. I remember debating with members of the town council to fly them all in on a Saturday morning. We would sit at town hall and we would interview them all publicly, and if the public had a question, they could ask it, and eventually they did agree to that. But eventually, my point being is that Mark Ells got the job. He was the local candidate, he was head of the DPW at that point. So the cream always rises to the top in terms of the candidate pool that you have, in my opinion. And I think if we're fair and we're clear, and we do this with as much objectivity as we possibly can, then I think in the end, we will hire the best candidate. And I think by using an outside entity to give us that kind of support, I think is in our best interest as a commission and as a town. And that's what I wanted to say. So with that being said, any other discussion? Okay, not hearing any. Let's take a look back at, this is a COM 0225-5. I'm gonna move this, and I'm gonna ask for a vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Do you want a roll call?
Let's do a roll call vote on this, so we're clear.
Chairman Flores?
Yes,
So you're, okay.
yes, I want this
Vice
approved.
Chairman Dio?
Yes.
Clerk Weil?
No,
Commissioner Beerworth?
No, not now.
Commissioner Bailey?
No.
Commissioner DeGeorge?
No.
Commissioner Melo?
Yes.
We have 3 yeses and 4 nos.
Okay, so this does not pass. Okay, let's move on to COM 225-6. This is an approval to adopt the proposed Cape Cod Gateway Airport strategic plan as written and presented. Norm, would you make that motion, please?
sure. The motion is to approve the adoption of the proposed Cape Cod Gateway MVP strategic plan as written and presented. The sponsor is the Airport Commission, and it may be acted upon.
Okay, the motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got the motion, it's been seconded. Discussion, I would ask both Commissioner Gio, who was the leader of this task, one that was very successful, as well as Katie and any other members of the commission, whatever they might want to say.
Yeah, so this is the version 1.0 of the strategic plan. Once this is approved and adopted, we would provide an editable version to Katie and Matt for them to manage, and also the dashboard that would be maintained, and I would expect would be reported out at each commission meeting, as well as posted on the website. which will give everybody an at a glance on the health of the plan. A lot of people's work was captured in this plan. A lot of time and effort spent by a great group of folks that got involved, both from the airport commission and residents of the town. Yeah, that's about it.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Liz? Yes.
No, may I say, Mark, absolutely amazing. This was, just blows me away, all the work that you did, and I think you really came to a conclusion that embraced the input from so many people. I'm curious about how you envision this going forward. You've got this broken into objectives and tasks.
Right.
Is this a joint project between the commission and the airport, or?
No, this is where we hand it over to the airport, and then the airport would actually fill out or modify any information that's there right now in terms, the objectives are fixed, the tasks are not. So, there were suggested tasks on there, but they may find a better path forward in the task area that also identify who the lead for that particular objective or task would be, and any resources that would be involved. So it's theirs to manage and execute.
And do we monitor it?
Yes. Yes, so they would report, they would include this in their report at our monthly meetings, as well as, as I mentioned, it could be posted on the website. We could see it at any time and see how it's going.
Great, thank you.
And I will be sure in my role as, at least presently as chair of the commission, to be sure that as we move these forward, that we will have a regularly scheduled presentation by the management to be sure that what it is we said we wanted to do. Because I'm a real stickler when it comes to strategic plans. So many times they've done, they set up a shelf and they just go away, everybody does it and they do it. Here we have metrics, we know what it is that we want to do. We have indicators of success, we have dates. And so I want to hold us, I want to hold management's responsibility to making sure that we did this, because otherwise this was a total waste of time. It's too valuable a piece of document that's going to be a guideline for us as we move this forward. So, yes, we will monitor this very closely. Okay.
Just a quick question, just really for Mark. I know you had indicated a dashboard would be used with this, so would we have a chance as management to sit with you and kind of walk through that, just to make sure we're on? I almost feel like maybe even a workshop for the first session to make sure we're on the right path.
Sure, we can do that. It's fairly simple. The dashboard, and I think you saw an image of it in the plan, the training book that we did. But the dashboard simply it's a dashboard that shows the goals, right? And it's color coded based on whether we're on time, started at risk of delay, or behind schedule. But if you click on any of the goals, it immediately takes you to those forms.
Okay.
Right? So it's built to mirror this plan. So I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but I have absolutely no problem at all spending some time going through it.
Just to make sure we're clear.
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we only received this at 2:30 on Friday. I'm not saying this is probably not the best thing in the world. I would like another couple of weeks to think about this and to have it brought back before the commission to ratify, adopt, before we do it today, because this feels kind of rushed.
Mr. Chairman, if I could respond to that?
Sure.
What you got on Friday, the only change from the previous draft that was sent out over a month ago was that Marguerite had pointed out that there was a discrepancy between what was listed in the objectives later in the book and what was in the one pager. And it was a number that was off. But the substance of it had not changed since the one that you got over a month ago.
Not arguing with you, I'm just asking for a little more time.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are you asking to amend this motion? That's really what you're asking us
Motion
to
to
do.
amend the motion to put this vote off for 2 weeks.
And what is your amendment?
Motion to table. be making a motion to table
Table the
to
motion
To a-
and
a later meeting.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to put this on hold as an amended motion for 2 weeks. Let's vote on the amendment first, and then we'll vote on the final motion. All those in favor of amending the motion as presented to delay this decision, to approve it for another 2 weeks. Our next commission meeting isn't for another month, so
It would be 4 weeks.
it will really be 4 weeks.
Yep.
When the next time we're together as a group.
Yep.
Okay, so we're asking to amend this then for 4 weeks until our next commission meeting. Norm Wiles seconded that. I'll call the vote. All those in favor of doing this signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is that, could you do a roll call on that? I didn't see this come up.
Chairman Flores,
No.
Vice Chairman Gill,
No?
Clerk Wyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Beerworth,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner DeGeorge,
Yes.
Commissioner Mela.
No.
We have
Okay.
4 yeses and 3 nos.
Okay, then we have just amended the motion, which makes 225
No?
dash.
No?
Well,
I'm sorry, what was it again?
We had 4 yeses.
Okay,
And 3 nos.
okay, thank you.
Yes.
so, we have voted to amend the motion as it was originally presented, 225-6, to postpone approval of it for, until the next commission meeting, which is, what's the date on that?
The 18th, I believe, of March.
On March 18th?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
am I
ma'am.
allowed to make a comment, or is this
Sure.
matter closed?
No, go
I
ahead.
have to say, as I was speaking to my colleague before this meeting, we didn't get it until Friday. But once you explained that the only changes were like the proofreading changes, like
Right.
there were 3 or 4 items in here that didn't appear on this page, but it did appear on the other page. So,
It was actually only one item, and between this
Yeah.
version and the one that you got over a month ago, it
The
was only
16.
one item. It was the last email that you sent me.
oh, the last one.
I can tell you specifically what it
It was
is.
like
if you look.
68 instead of 65 million or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, it was,
But, and that's the reason I changed my vote from being, because when it was presented that way, then
I understand, and I'm
I
not
don't know if
trying
that.
to.
No,
No.
and I just wanted to bring that up, because I was confused, like, when we were speaking before the meeting, so.
Well, the only, before we move on to reports of the special committees, I would only ask, I mean, we've had plenty of time to have read this, it's been a month. I read it a while ago, there's only one simple change. I would ask that everybody do their homework between now and March 18th to please read it. And if you have any questions, please make them, bring them to my attention if you could, before the 18th, so that we can vote this at the next meeting. You can do it through Kate, you can do it through me, and so we can get this resolved, so we can get this approved, so we have a new plan, and it's helping us move things forward. So that being said, let's go to number 10, reports of special committees. We have our Yarmouth representative comments. Chris?
Yes,
Floor is yours.
I have had conversations with our town administrator, and I know that we're going to be talking about it under the update, but I wanted to go on record on his behalf and saying he has some concerns about the airport, the whole issue of the flight analysis, procedure analysis, that he wants to make sure that Yarmouth is very, very actively represented in this and participating, in particular since Ron Kreis, who is the Yarmouth consultant, is a specialist in these kinds of things. And he, even in my conversation with him earlier today, indicated that he wanted that to go on record, that he wants to make sure that there is a real active coordination and communication and participation with Ron Price and with the town. So thank you. I know it's
As
going to be
noted.
discussed later, but, okay, thank you. I also had a question too from him about what's the status on the additional well. with Yarmouth in terms of the PFAS and that.
If it's all right, Chairman, if I can answer that?
Yeah.
For the well, today, we just approved of our new on-call environmental team,
Right.
HRP. HRP will add that as a task for them.
Okay.
And that's one of the first few things that they'll be working on, is to identify a scope of work for us that includes the additional wells.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Yep, that would be under the new contract.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, that's it.
Thank you, Chris. Katie, updates, if you've covered things already in the presentations, we'll move to those quickly. The rest-
Yeah, so given time, we still have an executive session to get to. May I suggest that we hold off on the presentation for FAA Civil Rights Program until the March meeting, if that's okay with everyone? And if I could just respond quickly in regards to the analysis that we're looking at for noise. And then the others I can just hold off unless we need to press it. In regards to the noise, we did provide feedback for the scope of work. We're looking at the inclusion, obviously, of Ron Price to be part of that proposal, as well as any of the civic associations that have responded to us. We're part of the master plan. Hyannis Park Civic Association being one of them, but we are also going to reach out to the other civic associations so that they have either their president or their vice president that were part of the process,
Okay.
as well as tenants.
Okay, perfect, thank you, and that'll be Greater Hyannis and everything? too?
Yes.
Okay, and there may be some others, because I know that you've had comments from people up in Barnstable Village, and you've had comments, I think, from people over even in South Yarmouth and things like that, so just making sure that all of those are
Yeah.
participating.
Yep,
Okay,
we
fine,
will.
thank you,
You're welcome.
thank you. Thank you for the update.
Okay. Any other announcements from any of the commissioners' comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
will we be returning to public session after executive session?
No, we
Okay.
will not.
Then, before we go into executive session, I'd just like to share that I think I've made it a point before that I've been concerned about the history of voting on this commission, that it's always unanimous. And tonight we had 2 votes, which was not, and it's really great to see. I encourage us to continue to challenge each other and have that diversity of opinion, because it gives us legitimacy. So I want to thank you all for that.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, just because I could thank you too, because I was very concerned, as you know, I wanted to make sure everybody got their
Yes.
oar in, and I think it's very important that we do that.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
And it was pretty uncomfortable. But
It was actually quite tame compared to lots of other meetings I've had in my career.
Yeah, and I think,
we like each other better.
Yes, that we do.
I think that's an indication of respect that we have for each other and each other's
Right.
concerns, and I hope that this becomes a model as we move forward. It's okay for us to disagree about stuff, but we'll work it out.
You know, the old cliche, we can all agree to disagree without being disagreeable.
That's right.
That's really what this is all about. And, you know, I'm fine. I mean, this is a democracy. Everybody has a vote. There's no executive privilege from my perspective as being chair or Mark as being vice chair. We're all just one vote, one person, and that's the end of it. So we'll just keep it moving forward based on what the results were of any of the votes that we took. And I just have one final announcement before we do go into executive session. I've had a long conversation with Wendy, and I've asked her, I'm just announcing, to be our liaison to any joint base Cape Cod / Cape Cod Gateway Airport discussions, meetings, whatever, relative to the request that came from the town council to ask Mass Development to incorporate into their study, which the government originally just wanted for housing, to also bring in a study to basically close this airport. I think most folks in the room know where I stand, where the commission stands as a whole. So first of all, Mass Development has to accept that request, and whether they do or they don't, I think that's still up in the air. But at any rate, if and when there are any meetings or Zoom calls, whatever the case might be, I've asked Wendy to be the point person for us, so she has gracefully agreed to do that. So, Wendy, I hope you don't have any meetings.
No.
With that being said, executive session, we're going to, I'll read this. What time is it?
5:39.
5:39. This is executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 21A, Section 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation. As a discussion in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Airport Commission and the town of Barnstable. I'll make the motion as chair of the Airport Commission. I move to enter executive session pursuant to Mass General Law 30A, Section 21, Section 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation. As a discussion in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Airport Commission in the town of Barnstable. Specifically, the Airport Commission will discuss litigation strategy with respect to the multi-district litigation in South Carolina's U.S. District Court regarding aqueous film foaming foam products liability litigation, and in particular, with respect to the town of Barnstable's member civil case, the town of Barnstable versus 3M Company et al. The Airport Commission will not reconvene in the public session after the executive session. So I have made the motion. We need a second.
Second.
Chairman, Vice Chair Gio, all those in favor? We have to do a roll call vote on this?
Yep.
Chairman Flores?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gale?
Yes.
Clerk Lyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Beerworth?
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner DeGeorge?
Yes.
Commissioner Melo?
Yes.
Thank you very much. We are,
What time is it?
Are we adjourning at 5:40? We will not reconvene.